Is there a purpose of every human life, a common goal? Well, you can't really have a subjective purpose towards every human life because every human life includes multiple different minds that disagree. Meanwhile, an objective purpose to every human life is just as not readily apparent as an objective purpose to a human life. So if one such exists, there's no way of every single person knowing exactly what it is and agreeing on it. And we can go back up to, is there a purpose of the universe? Again, subjective purpose doesn't really work because the universe isn't a subject. It doesn't think. It doesn't assign itself one. If it did think, I guess it could assign itself one, but we'd have no way of knowing it was doing that. So I don't think it really matters. Is there an objective purpose to the universe? Just as not readily apparent as an objective purpose to a human life. So not really a useful question. I'm going to go into one more different way of looking at it, and that's intended purpose. And by intended purpose, I'm looking at it from more of a designer aspect, which takes into thought gods. Oh, I have a book here. The book isn't really important itself, but the book was made by an author. And when he was creating the book, he probably intended for people to read it. Now, if I purchase the book and don't read it, if I decide to use it as a paperweight or to level out a desk, am I doing the wrong thing with it? Well, in our world, we kind of go by ownership. I've purchased the book, so anything I do with it is the right thing. And that's how we kind of settle that clash of subjective purposes. Even though it had an intended purpose, we don't hold me to it. And I want to look at it away between God creating people as a hypothetical. If God had an intended purpose for us, it could just as easily clash with what we decide our purpose is. And so I think you have this clash of subjective purposes. And one of the things that is good about our subjective purpose towards ourselves is that it's going to move us towards our values. If our values are happiness, our subjective purposes are probably going to move us towards happiness. Meanwhile, if a God created a subjective purpose for us, there's no reason why he should have to move towards our values. But that doesn't really settle the debate of whether we should be doing what a God had in mind for us, what his intended purpose is. But I want to use this analogy about creating a robot. Say we wanted to make a robot that works as a calculator. All we want it to do is calculate numbers. Whenever we give it an equation, we want it to figure it out. We give this robot the ability to create its own subjective purpose. It can think, it can decide what it wants to do with its life. The calculator decides it doesn't want to be a calculator. Does this robot have to be a calculator? And one of the questions is, why would we even give it the ability to choose to want to do something else if we had something else in mind for it? That seems like a completely counterintuitive design. Okay, and I'm going to finish up with some of the other questions that are encompassed within what is the meaning of life. Okay, some of those are, why are we here and where do we come from? Both these questions, I believe, are best answered through science, through investigation of the Big Bang, through investigation of abiogenesis and evolution. If you really wanted to know the answers to those questions, I think reading up about anything that's been published about those subjects are probably one of the best things you could do. Because those are people who are actually trying to answer those questions. That's why they're doing the work. And one of the last ones I'm going to answer here is, why does something exist rather than nothing? And I think there's two different ways of looking at that question. One is looking at the purpose. What is the purpose of something existing rather than nothing? Which I think I would give the same answer as to when I went back up to, is there a purpose of the universe? The second way of looking at it is there something about this universe having the exact amount of stuff it does have in it that makes it more likely than a universe with a different amount of stuff. Perhaps a universe with one less carbon atom or one more, or with absolutely nothing in it. I can't really answer that question, but I think it's more of a physics question. Perhaps there is something that makes the universe that we have a more likely outcome of any other possible universes. But I think that's a really tough question to answer. So I guess that's pretty much going to wrap up my video. If you have any opinions and maybe clarifications or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get to what I can. And other than that, thank you for watching my video. Bye.